The future of film and TV production is in Ontario. We've expanded our studio space. We've built virtual production sets, Canada's largest backlot, and an unparalleled workforce. Our Ontario Green Screen program ensures a more sustainable industry. We are Ontario, and we're ready to roll.
For 6 exciting years, we've shared stories connecting us to each other and our region. Celebrating our internationally recognized storytellers, encouraging diverse and emerging voices, and bringing you the best our region has to offer. This October, join us however you choose, online from home or in person in downtown London. The Forest City Film Festival invites you to see what's on.
Hey there. So welcome to the case study of how the fabulously successful and deeply heartfelt film Beans was created. If you haven't seen this film, it's inspired by true events. Beans is about a Mohawk girl on the cusp of adolescence who must grow up fast and become her own kind of warrior during the armed standoff known as the Oka Crisis of 1990. It has won 12 awards altogether and had a further 8 nominations. The awards include the Rising Star Award at TIFF in 2020, Canadian Screen Award for Best Feature Film this year, and the Crystal Bear Best Film in Berlin International Film Festival. It's been playing all over the world to great accolades. And so we're really, really excited to bring this discussion here. Let's hear how this film came about. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this land has been home to storytellers for thousands of years. And so as a film festival that focuses on the stories of this region, it's our honor and our responsibility to acknowledge that the land on which we are located is part of the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe of the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, the Lenape of the Munsee Delaware Nation, and also the Oneida Nation of the Thames, which is part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. This territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, a covenant between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and protect the land and resources. We are so honored and privileged to work on this beautiful, beautiful land and also live here. So at this point, I want to thank our presenting partner, Film London, who, like us, is focused with great energy on building the industry in our region. We're also really grateful for the support of Ontario Creates and, of course, of the Canada Media Fund. Along with the support of our 34 sponsors altogether and 14 community partners, we couldn't do this without all of this support. So today we're going to be starting with a clip from the director Tracey Deer, who is sorry not to be able to join us in person, but she's on set shooting her next film. I think you'll see, though, that she's given us a great starting point for a discussion with her producer and co-writer. So let me introduce these wonderful people who are in the room with us now today. So Meredith Vuchnich is a Writers Guild of Canada award-winning Canada Screen Awards nominated writer of feature films and television. She was recognized in 2020 as the Variety Top 10 Screenwriters to Watch. Vuchnich wrote and executive produced Beans, right here. And then also we have producer Anne-Marie Gelinas, founder of EMA Films. She works with innovative and ambitious writers and directors from around the world. She's produced internationally recognized films that span the globe and appeal to international audiences, including, of course, Beans. She can recognize a good thing and will put her weight behind it. So before we start the clip, let me just tell you a little bit more about Tracey Deer, the director. So Tracey Deer is a Mohawk filmmaker who has led the acclaimed dramedy Mohawk Girls to 5 award-winning series as its co-creator, director, and co-showrunner. She has won numerous Canadian Screen Awards and Gemini Awards, and has worked with CBC, the National Film Board, numerous independent production companies throughout Canada. Beans was her first feature film. And so without further ado, let's see what she has to say about the genesis of the idea of Beans and how she put it all together. Let's play that first clip.
Thanks, Dorothy. It's great to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but really thrilled to share some of the process from my end of it with you this way. This story has been in the making for me for 31 years. I lived this event when I was 12 years old. It really is inspired by my own coming of age. And I also decided when I was 12 years old that I wanted to be a filmmaker. So I was already writing scripts and having big dreams for my future at that point. And it was always in my mind that one day when I am grown and I have made it, I am a director, that this is the story that I want to tell. I want to tell the story of the Oka Crisis from the point of view of a child, from my point of view, the way I lived it, because the way I lived it was very different than the way the adults in the community lived it, the way my parents lived it, certainly different from the way Canadians experienced it. And it was devastating. It was a devastating way to find out what it means to be an Indigenous woman in this country. And it began a period of my life that was very dark, and I felt worthless. I felt unsafe. And that is the power of our actions, the actions that we take every single day as Canadians have profound impact on the Indigenous people of this country. And I thought that by sharing the experience of one person, myself, that maybe I could reach some people and give them a look into what it was like for me. Build those bridges, build that compassion, build that empathy, gain some allies, change the world. That is the goal as a filmmaker for me. With every single piece I do, I want to change the world. I want the world to be a better place. And the way I'm doing it is to share these stories in hopes of inspiring the masses out there to self-reflect, to have difficult conversations, and I hope to challenge themselves to go out and figure out what do I do to make this better. And I feel like 20 years of experience up until this point, getting to Beans, it really was, it's all been necessary for me to get to the point where I was ready to tell this story in all the complexity that it has to achieve that lofty goal. And I won't know, if it achieves that goal, but I am going to continue trying to achieve that goal over and over and over again. So this film was my latest effort to achieve that goal. As I said, it's 31 years in the making, because I've been wanting to tell this story ever since I was 12. But it was definitely back burner in my mind for a long time. I mean, it was never, I never thought it would be my first feature, because it is so massive in terms of the themes I wanted to explore, this historical event, the level of complexity of the scenes. We're talking lots of extras, we're talking violence. So I never had it in my mind that this would be my first feature. But I also didn't know, what my career path would end up being. As a 12-year-old girl, I wanted to be a film director. I wanted to make movies. And when I was in university, I took a history of documentary course on my summer semester. It was the only thing being offered by the film studies department. And I promised myself I would take one class in my major every single semester. So I was always connected to my passion. And the only thing available was history of documentary. And I'm telling you, at the time, I thought, maybe I should change my rule. Maybe summer semester, I just skip this. I skip film studies. But I love filmmaking. I love storytelling. So I said, no, I need it. So I'm going to learn the history of documentary. And it changed my life, changed my worldview. The power of truth, the power of emotion, the bravery of people, real people opening up. I mean, I was just floored. At the end of every class, I was a ball of tears. I was moved. I was changed. And I thought, this is where I need to be, because my goodness, do my people have stories to tell? And what better way than to have them actually share those stories themselves? Who needs fiction when you have the power of truth? And so then the dream took that route. And I at that moment was like, I need to be a documentary filmmaker. So my career began in documentary. It was 10 years. And then I did end up hitting a creative wall. And in my sort of struggle of that, I reconnected with the little girl and her love of fiction and her dream of being a fiction director. And I made a short film. I produced it myself, I wrote it myself, and I directed it. And it was all with the help of the Canada Council. So I had the room to make mistakes and fall flat on my face if I had to. So there was some safety there, and I made a short film. I loved it. And that short film ended up being the genesis of Mohawk Girls, the series. So that is how I then found myself in television and sort of learned my way around fiction storytelling and a fiction set and a fiction crew with Mohawk Girls. And 17 years documentary, and then Mohawk Girls. I had a wonderful time on in the part of the writing team of Anne with an E. So a full drama show. Learned more about my craft. Gained more confidence in my craft through that experience. And then I was ready. I was ready to take on the feature. I had documentary, I had TV, and feature is what was left. And I'll tell you this: in the beginning of my career, when I decided I wanted to try fiction, I approached the few people that I knew in the industry already, and the message I continually received was, "But you're a documentary filmmaker. You can't do fiction. You're a documentary filmmaker, and don't ever tell me what I can't do, because I am going to prove you wrong." And my whole life has been about proving people wrong. So if you're going to give me a limit, I am going to find a way to bust past that limit. And so when people told me, well, no, you have to choose a lane, I didn't. I did documentary, I did TV, and I thought, you know what, it's now time to do features. And I had already met Anne-Marie Gelinas, producer of Beans, years before, and she's always sort of looking to meet new talent. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and I started discussing ideas. And as the process went on, I shared with her what like my ultimate story would be, but I said it in such a way that, eventually, like this is the story I am dying to tell. And it was Anne-Marie who said, well, why eventually? Like, I am riveted to what you have to say. Let's do that. And I was a little shocked, because this is my first feature. And I was still early on in my fiction career. It was early on in Mohawk Girls' time, and I was scared. I was a little shocked, but she was super enthusiastic and believed in me before I believed in me. And boy, oh boy, did I want to tell this story. So I said, okay, if you think I can, then let's start exploring that. So she was able to get money for a first draft, or for an outline. It was for an outline. And I started putting ideas down, and it was difficult. It was really, really difficult. I didn't realize how buried those memories were, and how much resistance I had to going back there. It was really, really hard. And a lot of the time when I would sit down to try to work on it, this resistance would come up, and sometimes there were physical symptoms. Sometimes I was shaking. Sometimes I would feel like I want to throw up. Sometimes I was crying, and it was so negative. It was such a negative experience that I would just put my hands up and say, okay, not today. And I'd walk away. And of course, every so often you're having meetings with the producer. The producer wants to know how it's going. I'm having meetings with Anne-Marie. I'm petrified driving to the office thinking, oh my God, I haven't made enough progress. And at every meeting, instead of, reprimanding me, which is what I was absolutely expecting, she would say, okay, no problem. Take the time and let's check in again in 3 months. And this went on for a little while. And, I found myself in her office again, and I was crying and telling her that I feel really stuck. And she said, what can I do to support you? And I was now at this point deep into Mohawk Girls, working with my creative partner, Cynthia Knight, and the collaborative experience I was having with her. I mean, it was just magical. And I think part of what was so hard in working on this feature by myself in the beginning, not only were the stakes so high for me because this is just, it's a watershed moment for Indigenous people. It's a massive moment in Canadian history. It's my own community. It's representative of the most traumatic moments of my life. So the stakes were gigantic. Not only is that going on, but the self-doubt is also just overwhelming. So I would spin, the ideas would sort of spin. And, when you're in the creation process, anything is possible. Every choice you make, you have 100 options for that character to do. And once you make that choice, there's 100 more choices to make. And so you swim in that self-doubt of, okay, is this the right thing for the character to do right now? But what if they did this instead? But with this? What about this? And you're scared to make the wrong choice, because every choice you make, you continue to build. And then what if it was the wrong choice? And then you have to strip all the way back. It's just scary. It's scary. Let me just say that. And so Anne-Marie said, how can I support you? And I said, can we get a story editor on board? Somebody that I can be bouncing ideas off of. I could be getting feedback, and I can build that collaborative experience that I'm having on Mohawk Girls. That's going so well. And that's how Meredith joined the team. Meredith and I had known each other from years before. We had met. Our energy really aligned. I think with a story editor, you want somebody you feel safe with, somebody you trust. I think the way you see the world, the way you see stories, the kind of stories you want to tell, all of that's really important in choosing the story editor. It's a very intimate relationship, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And it's the scariest thing to share your ideas with somebody, especially when it's early stage, because you don't want to be told that they're terrible, that they suck, that they're not interesting. I mean, that's what's so scary. And that's why it's so important to have such an incredible story editor on board that you feel safe with. And that's what Meredith was for me. Meredith was my story editor to get me to an outline that we all felt good about. The whole team felt good about. And I mean, Meredith might be able to pinpoint how long that process took, but that outline, that took a long time. Like we were in it together, and obviously Mohawk Girls is happening. There's other things happening. So I'm not like full-time working on an outline for 2 years, just to be clear, you can't pay your rent that way. But we were going back and forth. I would take some time, I would come back to it. And then once we had an outline we were all happy with, Meredith and I, we were just so embedded in it together. And Meredith cared so much and had given so much that I couldn't imagine doing this without her. And so asked her if she would come on board and we could do this together. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that she said yes. And so that's that's how the team came to be. And then Meredith and I, then we started the writing process, and that took a number of years. Overall, the whole process of writing took around 8 years in total, until we had a script that I felt said everything I wanted to say. And then I was finally able to say to Anne Marie, one, thank you for your patience and your support. Two, here you go. It's ready. And then off we went.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Is this on? Yep. So, what a wonderful starting point to kind of tell us a bit more about the journey of this film. And I know that we've got a couple of other film clips lined up and ready to go. But let's first just talk, let's just take it a couple steps beyond where Tracey has left us. So now, because this is the case study about getting it made, not just the, taking a look at the film itself and all the details and all the little elements in the film, but what, once she handed you that script that was ready to, was it a script that was ready to shoot, or are there many more levels at that point?
There are many levels. Should I talk about the script now? Okay, I'll talk about the script now. So I came on, so Tracey and I met 10 years previous when I story edited a different feature she had, which was also coming of age, not coming of age, but growing up Indigenous in this country. Completely different, but the same themes. So when she asked me to come on this, I'd say it took a year. She said 2. I'd say that outline took a year, and she was doing other things. And then we started writing, and we wrote very quickly that outline. We wrote scenes. I'd write a scene. She'd write a scene. She was at this point a less experienced writer and more of a director. So I would write anything that I thought was hard, anything that had a lot of people in it, anything that was just craft-wise difficult. Tracey always had last pass. She always had, it was all about her truth and the truth of her community. That was never an issue. So, so a lot of what I was doing was, as she said, I was very embedded and I cared so much, and I care so much. So I was bringing my own truths to things, but her truths trumped them if they were different. If I wrote a bullying scene, but it wasn't the way bullying happened on the reserve, then the way bullying happened on the reserve happened. So we wrote that first draft, we wrote scene by scene. Each person wrote one. And then that did way better than we expected, given that process. And then we had a story editor at the Canadian, we went through a TIFF program in 2017 through TIFF Studio. So we did that first draft together. I wrote a second draft while she was shooting Mohawk Girls, based on notes from the first draft. Then we went through with Christina Lazzariti, who's a wonderful story editor out of New York, and she helped us realize how much we needed to streamline. And so Tracey did the next draft then, and really streamlining. And then we went back and forth on beginnings, especially beginnings. And but with each new partner, but that third draft, I would say, official third draft, was the one we really, the third to fourth draft. Every time there's a draft, there's like 9 drafts. The idea, like, you write 3 drafts and it's done, is hilarious to anyone out there who wants to write, for the screen. Like, there's a draft, and then there's a million changes to that draft, and then there's a draft, and then there's a million changes to that draft. So by then I would say it was 2018, and we shot in 2019. So lots of 2019, we were doing readings at the Canadian Film Centre. We were doing small changes, but that big draft was probably end of 2018.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that it was October 2018 when we met with Mongrel Media, who's our distributor, and I thought they have to be our distributor. They have done a very good job. But my feeling was, we have to take it to them. But we only took 50 pages to them. This I remember.
Right.
And we had a very good new outline, and we had 50 pages of the script written. We didn't have the rest. And I said, you guys have to come on board now, because our funding process starts now, and we have to keep going. I have to go to Telefilm and SADC at certain dates, and we just need you to come on board. And they took the leap of faith, because the first 50 pages were just so amazing.
And so was that leap of faith, it was the first 50 pages, was it also because you've worked with them before and they know that if you say yes to something?
We hadn't worked together yet. As a producer-distributor relationship, we hadn't worked together yet. But I had known them for a long time. We had tried to work together on different films. I really liked the team. It just never happened. And we knew that a film would be in our future at some point. And so I knew more Andrew Frank he's a vice president. And I said, we have to get Tracey in a room with Hussein Amarshi, the head of Mongrel. And Meredith knows them very well as well. So we were able to get Tracey and Hussein in a room talking, and the magic happened. That's basically what happened.
And so then when did you choose the rest of your team, the cinematographer, the sound design? When do you choose that? At what stage?
It was much later. So we went into funding in January and
2019.
2019. Yeah. And as some of you may know or will discover, you rarely get the funding all in one shot the way that we did. We were very, very, very lucky. Mm-hmm. So yes, the writing process took 8 years, as Tracey described very well, and it was very beneficial to the whole creative process because it was difficult for Tracey. So when she went to work on Mohawk Girl, she could take time away and come back and find more strength and tackle it again. So it was very good to have all this time, but also because Meredith and Tracey were ready to take it, to really make it as best as it could be. Once we had the script, everybody loved it. So we were very, very ready when we presented. So in March, or end of March, beginning of April, I started hearing some feedback from the investors that they were very, very happy. And that we were at SADC, it's actually super organized and very clear. You bring your script in, your project in for production in January, and a month and a half later, you make it to phase 2. So you go phase 1, and they get rid of about half, a little bit more than half of the projects. They only keep the other half. And at that point, I had called somebody, and they had told me, "Wow, yeah." It's up there. Even on the second list, we already knew we were up there. Mm-hmm. And at Telefilm as well. It was more informal, but I had already heard that they'd loved it. So then we started thinking of hiring people. Okay. It was then.
Because you obviously really want to have your money all together, because these are people's jobs. You know, you don't want to say to people, "Yeah, we're going to do it," and then, "Oh, sorry," and they've lost their summer. You know, so you have to be responsible to the crew too, which Anne-Marie always is.
Yes. So the writing took a lot of brainstorming, and obviously there was a lot of little elements that get thought through to such a deep level that any question that comes at you from any of the possible distributors, the funding agencies, you've thought everything through. And this is maybe where we can kind of segue to the first clip. Yeah. And so let's play the first clip, and then we can sort of have a discussion around what kind of thoughts went into that. Does that sound good?
Great.
Girls, this is it.
The occupation of an ancient pine forest on the Mohawk Reserve of Ganazadage is in its 4th month. The people here are protecting land and a burial ground, which they consider sacred, from being leveled for a golf course expansion by the neighboring town of Oka.
We're done having our land taken from us. We are going to stay here as long as it takes.
My cousin's famous!
Meanwhile, the mayor of Oka has expressed his determination to see the project through.
Are you ready now to abandon the project?
No. That's it. Tension between the two communities continues to rise, and it's unclear if either side is open to a compromise.
Take a good look, girls. They're defending our rights.
We should go, Dad. I care about our rights too. Yeah, me too.
You know what? That is a great idea. We'll go tomorrow.
Road trip!
I'd like to go back just a little bit to the origin for me. we first started talking, Tracey and I, about the story, she had all these ideas about coming of age, and then I asked her, when did you come of age? And then she told me, like at 12 years old, it was 1990. It was the Oka Crisis, and I was like, oh my God. She said, no, but that's not the film we're doing. Like that's the ultimate film. So she talked about this a little bit, and so one of the other challenges we had was to not make a historical film about the entire Oka Crisis. It was very important to Tracey's vision, and I totally supported that, and I totally went into that direction with her and all the partners that we added to the team as we advanced in our creative process and financing process. It was very important that it be understood that it was told from a woman's point of view and for women. We were talking about Tracey's vision, and she's a woman, she's Mohawk, and we had to stay there. Like, so we weren't trying to say everything to everyone about everything. It didn't make any sense anyway. It would have been like a 100-hour TV series. I don't know. There was 78 days of crisis, and every day there was something else going on. And I just want to send a personal note. I just graduated university in the summer of 1990, and I studied communications. I took a class in propaganda, and I remember watching these news clips and watching this mayor wanting to build 9 more holes to his golf course so it could be an 18-hole golf course because that was going to bring in money in Oka. I was like, what? That's crazy, you know? And that he was portrayed as ridiculous as you just saw in the clip for about 3 or 4 days. And then that got evacuated. And I had just studied propaganda. I was like, what is happening in the news and why aren't people reacting? But it was evacuated. All that was left were the Mohawk community, or they call them the terrorists, blocked the bridge and are preventing white people from going to work. This was all that was left in the news. It was how bad, how violent, how crazy they were. They're terrible, and we must send in the provincial police, and we must send in, that didn't work, so we're going to send in the army. It's like, wait a minute. This is all for a golf course. And this kept running back into my head all summer long. Anyway, so when Tracey talked to me about this, I was like, okay, this has to be told from that point of view. It's never been seen, and it's very important that it be seen and told by a female point of view.
Yeah, the context of the story is phenomenal. I mean, it's got everything, every element of an amazing story right there. And then bringing it down to Bean's point of view, and how important it is for the perspective of her family, and of course, a 12-year-old girl's point of view on her life at that point is going to be quite happy and lovely. So how did you integrate some of those ideas in the writing process?
Well, there's a lot I want to pick up on from what you said, but one of them is it was really important to all of us to show a happy Indigenous family, because mostly what we saw in drama were families that weren't functioning very well. And that's definitely a reality, but that's not the only reality and not the bigger reality. So that was really important to us all, especially to Tracey, but to all of us. And also the POV was really interesting because it just streamlined it. Like, if Beans doesn't live it, it doesn't happen. If Beans isn't in the room, we can't have it. We can't cheat it. We can't, and we tried all of this. We learned all of this by trying it. Maybe there's a conversation between the two parents that she comes in for the end of, and then you're like, no, we can do that, but then we stay on her and we leave with her, but we never stay in this other conversation. That's not this movie. This movie is all her, and that helped. Because, as Anne-Marie said, there was so much going on and so much we could have told. So knowing that the POV was only Beans helped, because that was an easy check mark. If it is, it stays, and if it isn't, it's gone.
It's a great dramatic tool too, because as you say, just keeping that real focus on her. She walks in, she only hears the part of we only hear the part of the conversation. Yeah. It builds the confusion for us too, and later the clarity. So It's
good.
Yeah.
Well, and Tracey said, like, in this period, her family made a conscious choice to protect them from the news. And so she didn't know what was going on. She said, we didn't know what was going on, and that was a choice made out of love. So we wanted to respect that too. And you know, you try to keep children. And
Yes.
when they're facing this, you know, Beans comes of age anyway. She learns it all. And something I want to discuss as well, this is the one place we broke our rule, was the scene we just saw, where we saw the news on the TV. We never did that again. In earlier drafts, that happened a lot. But that was one of those things that weighted it down, because we had to figure out how to get the information of Oka to people, because none of us outside of people living it understood it, and no one had seen this side of it. And no one outside of Canada even knows about it, and lots of people inside Canada don't even know about it. And I didn't know that much. So that was actually quite useful, how little I knew, because I had an experience similar to Anne-Marie in that I watched it transform, but I didn't understand what was
You hadn't taken the communications course
not.
and the
But I
so
but I started in the same place going, isn't this about, you know, you really were going, isn't this about a golf course? Like, isn't that what's happening here? Like, how just catching pieces on the news and seeing, you know, seeing the struggles and the really terrible things that were happening, and then the army coming in, and it seemed preposterous, but it was all reality. So we decided to use the news portions, which we didn't show in this clip, but throughout the movie there's 6 or 7 news clips, what do we call them? Montage, yeah. And so the only thing we filmed that is not real news was the shot of that one actress playing Howie. Everything else was news that was on TV. So the most hateful things coming out of people's mouths were said to people with cameras, knowing they would be on television. So that's something we really wanted to do, because I don't think people remember how bad it is. I know they don't, and I know we don't. And I think people needed to see them. I think Canadians needed to see the rhetoric around this.
and the power of layering it on the way that you did, starting out with the relatable happy family that, and then adding on the pulling back of the confusion as this 12-year-old girl starts to learn more about what's going on. And it's very powerful. It's much more powerful than if you had rolled it out in a different way.
And I think there's a lot of power to staying with your lead character. This is for all the filmmakers. Like, you know, to really empathize, that there's a lot of power to never leaving them. Then you are really joined with them.
Yeah.
And that's it. So interestingly enough, because I am from Quebec, and so when we released the film in Quebec last summer, there was a lot of French media that Tracey didn't want to do, so I did a lot of them. Thank God, because some of them were really still very, not very positive, if I can say it that way. And some of them even asked me, why did you choose these archives, and only these archives that are so negative? And I would just answer, I'm sorry, we went through every archive. This is all that there was. There was never any positive. There was some positive ones there at the end of the movie. We did use them. It did take a long time, like 78 days or 70 or 65 days or something, you know, for people to go, okay, wait, this doesn't make any more sense. There must be, you know, this has to stop. So it took a very long time for that to happen. And other people, more positively, other people said, it is excellent that you did that, because if you tried to recreate all these moments fictionally, we would have not believed you. We would have said, oh, you exaggerated. You used fiction to exaggerate reality. So the fact that we actually used these archives really were beneficial for the storytelling, because the audience, anyway, the people in Quebec that I know, the white people, they all went like, oh, we were that bad. Okay, so and then they because of the way that she brings in the story, you both brought in the story, and because of the way it's directed, you're not attacked, you're not aggressed by that. You're just like, oh, okay, I've got to listen. You know, I've got to open my heart and keep listening to this story.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Let's watch the clip number 2, because this is going to move us down the discussion another step, I think. So if we can play the second clip, please.
sharp it is.
Hey, that's mine! I want to do it.
Fine.
We'll both do it.
What the fuck are you guys doing?
It's not a fucking toy.
You're too stupid or something.
My brother asked you a question.
We just want to go. You're mean.
Okay, girlie. Now get the fuck out of here. Go, 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 go! Move!
Tell us about the casting process. This is a great place to talk about casting. Such really good performances and really an interesting cast. So how did you find so many talented Indigenous people?
Well, that's it. We wanted to show this clip to show our wonderful kids. They were just amazing. I remember when I got the complete script, reading it and weeping, and just going, oh my God, this is so amazing. This is so cool. And putting it down and calling Tracey and going, wow, we did it. Okay, this is cool. Hanging up and picking up the phone again and going, I'm not going to swear. I'm going to Tracey, what? We have to find the kids now. This is it. Like, where are we going to get this cast? So we tried with Maxime Giroux in Quebec, who actually ended up doing a lot of our casting. But he tried with the kids, and it wasn't working. We got 5 or 6 videos. None of them were our beans, and we were, oh my God, how are we going to do this? And Tracey had worked on Anne with an E, and Renee Haynes was part of the casting process to find Gawin Dio, who actually plays also in Anne with an E. And so we asked her to find our kids. And so the 4 of them, because there's a lot. And so she proposed more than 100 videos. So she had a lot of contact throughout Canada with a lot of Indigenous youth. So we had 100 videos. And I have to say most of them were amazing. But we focused on about 20. And we decided to bring them to Toronto. And we already had the Canadian Film Centre's help in development. And so we went to the Canadian Film Centre and brought everybody in with their parents, of course, and for a 2-day workshop. So we also hired Millie Hutton, who came to be our coach. And we did all sorts of exercises, improvising exercises, all sorts of things. And we went on, and at the end of the 2nd day, we did what we called a callback. So the first audition level, we took the 23.
23, 5 of each of the, and then 8 beans.
That's it.
Yeah.
You had 8 beans.
We had 8 beans.
That's it. Do you want to continue?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and Millie Hutton was amazing, and she had done the Anne with an E workshop as well. So she and Tracey had that together in experience, and these actors. It was one of my favorite things of the whole thing. We were up at the Canadian Film Centre in this big, beautiful room with 23 Indigenous youth and caregivers, and it was just remarkable. And they were, not everyone would get a part at the end, but we were just really hopeful that everyone got a great experience and learned something about acting, because these were really talented, amazing kids. And you like when you are casting, you're not casting. You, as an actor, you think you made a mistake and you don't get a job, but it's rarely that. You're just not that person for that job, and that's just it. And that's hard with kids. So it was just really lovely, and it was amazing. But we didn't find Ruby. We didn't find our little girl, and that was a surprise, because we had all these terrific young actors, but they weren't the actor that turned the key in the lock. They just weren't the right person. And so that one came down to the wire, and we were looking at a few other girls, all of whom were, again, terrific. But one of our makeup artists, right, talked to Tracey, got a message through to Tracey that she knew a little girl on the reserve in Ganawage who might be appropriate. And then we met Viola and our hearts broke and we were so happy. And it was so great because she's our youngest actor. She's on set a lot. She's in a lot of scenes, even though she doesn't have as many lines, she's there. So if we had brought in one of these other actors, they would have had to be in a hotel room with their parent, away from their family, away from everything for a long period of time. There would have been no going back and forth. But, Viola got to sleep in her own bed. Different grown-ups brought her. She got to have a life. I thought I was really happy about that because that can be really hard on little people. So, and she brought all that joy.
Yeah, she really did. She was really terrific.
Isn't she terrific?
And what a great opportunity for the actors, the group of actors, the group of performers. They've gone. A lot of them have gone on to do a lot of other things now.
Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah, no. Okay. Yeah. So in that scene alone, 2 of those actors presented at the Emmys last month. And Paulina, who plays April, and DeFaro, who plays Hank, went on to be cast in Reservation Dogs, which is on FX in the States. And here it is, I forget. I watched it. Is it CBC Gem? Disney Plus. Thank you, Disney Plus. And they and it's a big hit, and they're doing great, and they're both so good. Paulina's, she just was so aligned with the character of April that I felt for all the other Aprils who were doing great work, but Paulina was just so aligned with April.
And Paulina is also in the new Ghostbusters that's going to come out soon. So that's also really cool for her.
And if you were at the screening, I guess they did the Q&A yesterday, right?
Yeah, they came for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about financing here, or have we sort of?
Yeah. Let's hear a bit about the financing.
Right. So as I said, with the casting. The big casting process, we had the help of the Canadian Film Centre. They were an amazing partner. They actually opened a call for film. They do, I don't know if they're going to do it anymore, but they used to do about one film a year. So they open a big, a call for projects, and everybody presents. In 2018, they had a call for only women directors who were going to do their first features. So they were very, very specific, and they knew a lot of the people, or they knew a lot of people who knew them. So it was a per invitation, and we were invited to present along with many other people, and then we found out in April or May of that year that we were chosen. We were the project that was chosen, and it was the summer, and there was a lot of rules with our financing, and we were getting $500,000. So it's $100,000 from the Canadian Film Centre, and it comes with an automatic pre-license with Crave of $400,000, pre-negotiated. So we're like, wow, $500,000, and that's great. And normally these films at the Film Centre their budget is not much bigger than that. It rarely goes up to $1.5 million. So, and I said to Justine White, who was there then, I said, our film is a lot more than that, and we can't do it. And she said, you have to do it this year. And I remember calling Tracey and Meredith and crying and going, ladies, I have to call Justine and say no thank you. As a producer, it's so against me to say no to money. But there's no way we can do this. So we couldn't present SADEC's, our provincial fund. SADEC was, the deadline was August. The answer was December, so it meant shooting next summer. It's a summer film. It's a summer crisis. And none of it lined up. Nothing worked. So I said, I've never said no to money, so I will. And I called Justine, and she goes, no, I don't want this answer. And I said, okay, well, then you gotta be able to extend it to next year. She said, okay. And so she went to work with her bosses and with her colleagues and called us back about 3 weeks later and said, okay, we're pushing it to next year. So we're like, yes.
That's amazing. Right. How amazing to have that support. That's not something that happens very often. So that must have given you a big boost of confidence that you had something very special on your hands.
That's it. It meant they really, really loved the project because they just bend their rules to keep us there. And also in Quebec, there's a special fund from the Canada Media Fund for minority languages. So in Quebec, it means shooting in English in Quebec. And the trigger is a television sale. So by getting CFC Crave, it triggered this other thing, this special fund from the Canadian Media Fund. And with tax credits, it meant that when we presented with the script that had taken 8 years to write, in January to both funders, Sedec and Telefilm, we already had so much financing confirmed, so many partners confirmed. Because one of the things is that the first yes is the hardest yes to get on any project. So no one wants to be first. They all want to know someone else likes it somewhere. So that's what we do in cocktails too. We say, oh, this person likes it, whatever. So we didn't have that, so that's how we came together.
What did the final budget end up to be?
I rarely say it. I rather not. Because honestly, it really, in my experience, it means absolutely nothing. You know, we can know that, I don't even know what the latest James Bond cost, but that we're never gonna be there, and nobody understands what the money is anyway. I'm gonna be really honest, I've worked with production managers that don't understand what a budget total means. You'll say, like, I have 10 million, I have 2 million. It's like, one will say, I don't have enough money at 10 million, and one will say, I have to, anyway. So it means nothing, really. So I'd rather not say.
Fair enough.
Can I make one comment on the financing?
Please.
With the financing, that's when Emery says partners. So every time you bring someone on, you also take notes from them. So that is the one thing, like, that's the other side, is that everyone that comes on then has voice at the table. Right. So that was the other thing about being as far along as we were and everyone loving it so much. And it was really nice to have two writers, because I'm usually by myself and I'm usually just taking the notes. And, you know, when you're taking notes as a writer, there are notes you automatically hear and go, yep, 100% they're right. No, 100% they're no. And then there's all the stuff in between, and that's the hard stuff. And that was really nice to have Tracey too, because I could hear her, I could feel her back go up in meetings, and I'd be like in my head going, we're not taking that, so don't worry about it. Like, and I'll tell you why later, but we don't have to fight them now. Or where I was like, yeah, we could probably do that, and she'd be like, nope, because it's hard. You want to make it as good as it can be. So you don't want to just say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. You know, they're in the business, they know what they're talking about. But my experience again as a writer is that when people like what they read, they have a million thoughts of things to make it more like their experience. And that's not what we're doing.
Exactly. You're not making it homogenous. Let's watch the next clip, because it will bring us further down the discussion. So if we can play the final clip.
Sweetie, we'll eat soon.
I want biscotti.
Yeah, let's have spaghetti.
Okay, that'll be the plan. Girls, get down. Get on the floor. Get on the floor now.
Why?
Get on the floor! I said unbuckle! Now! Stay down! Stay down!
scene. What a scene. And it starts so innocuously with a spaghetti conversation. And then the way it builds, it was fantastic, beautifully written and incredibly performed. How did you deal with the safety on set? And another question, I don't even know which to ask first. The way the police were there, just watching it all happen and letting it all happen, was that written into the script, or was that a directorial choice later?
This was the truth. This was the truth.
Yeah.
This was the truth. So this scene is halfway through the movie. And I'll just backtrack a second to say, this is one of the first stories that Tracey told me about the Oka Crisis, and she lived this. She was in the car exactly in that setup. Her mom was driving. She was in the front seat. Her sister was in the back. The window got broken, and they had no choice but to just keep on driving. And I was crying. I'm still crying now. I was crying. I was just crying. I was just floored. I couldn't move. I was shaking. And I said, but we barely saw that in the news in Quebec because it was so shameful. It came on the news and never got replayed in the year of 1990 when CNN got on and all those news were coming on and replaying every 5 minutes. This one just never came back. So historically, it's in the middle of the Oka Crisis, and the provincial police has done an awful, awful job of containing this problem or trying to figure it out, or keeping the peace between the people in Ganasatake and Oka, and on the other side of the bridge, Ganawage and Chateauguay. So they did an awful job. So the army came in, and so the scene right before this, they're being told that the women and children have to leave. That's why they're leaving. And they're being stuck on the bridge for 5 hours waiting in the sun. And then the white people gathered. This is historical. And so the provincial police had just been told how badly they were doing their job, and the army was taking over, so they did nothing. They made sure nobody crossed over, but that's all they did. Some of them even laughed. Some of the footage of the real footage is really awful to watch. More awful than this, because you see so many angry people. This almost turned into civil war. It was so bad. It was so, like, we filmed what we could, but we wanted to put the camera in the car and be with them. But the whole event, we call it rock throwing at Whiskey Trench. Whiskey Trench is an actual place in Montreal when you get off the Mercier Bridge and into the Allen, and you sort of go down. So the people were all over them, and we didn't film in the right place, in the historical place. But anyway, so this was very, very difficult for us to relive, for Tracey, especially for Tracey to relive, and all of our cars. Although the camera's not in the car, in any of the cars, all of our cars were driven by women from Ganawage, and most of them had either lived it or had someone who had lived it. And so we brought on two social workers from the Ganawage Social Services, and a psychologist who's a specialist in PTSD. And every time we would film the scene, we would take 15, 20 minutes to just get everybody out of the cars, get the air flowing, stop crying, wipe your tears, and talk. And the women, the social worker and the shrink would gather all the women in a circle and talk. And the most beautiful thing happened. At the end of the day, the women told the two social workers and the psychologist that by reliving the event over and over throughout the day, they were able to distance themselves from it. They were able to get a grip on it and place it somewhere in their mind that didn't hurt so much anymore. And they were able to talk through it, be with people that had lived the same thing, and be on a set that recognized their pain, that heard their pain.
I could see how that would be very therapeutic, most definitely for those women. Lucky them. How about our little beautiful youngest little actress there? How did she manage on set doing
Well,
that?
she managed because she had all the help around her. We took a lot of care around our actors on many, many days. Millie Hutton, who helped us in the casting process, followed us through production about half the days she was with us. And so she could talk with the actors, the children in between takes. Their parents would be there. And as you know, like to film, you're going to put the camera facing the rocks. There's none of our cast is in the car for that pass because they don't have to live it 12 times, right? So we're only going to make them live it one time or two at the most, and keep them away from the set for the rest of the day. And we had a body double for Beans. We had hired another actor who was like 30 years old, but was very small and looked so much like her. Yeah. And we just braided her hair the same way, and she had the same costume, so we'd never see it from the front. But so we used her a lot as well as safety. In a lot of the stuff, there's a lot of other scenes that are difficult in the film as well, and so we use her to do a lot of the filming so Gawandio wouldn't have to be on set all the time. And for certain specific scenes, like for those of you who've seen the film, there's a really difficult scene at the end. There's a sexual aggression. We had Gawandio play with a stunt woman instead of in front of the Pharaoh. So it would be a woman in front of her instead of a man. And when the Pharaoh played the scene, he's the one aggressing Gawandio. Well, no. Hank is aggressing Beans.
The character.
Sorry, as the characters. Well, that's exactly what it is. Anyway, so Hank was playing in front of the body double, so they wouldn't play together. And so what I just did is exactly why we had an intimacy coordinator on set, because these children, they are playing these roles, and they are amazing. And so the danger is they're going to walk off set having played either the aggressor or the aggressed, and thinking, "Wow, I'm so good. I must be that. That must be me." So they were in danger, even an adult actor, anyway, they're in danger of taking away that piece of creation they just did, like that voice they just heard themselves, so say these words, do these things. So we had an intimacy coordinator that helped them through that process, just to practice, know that they're walking into a scene, walking out of a scene, leaving it there, and feeling safe, and talking about it in between scenes.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And the intimacy coordinators are more common now. Like that was the first time I had worked with one, but they're more common now, and it's amazing. It's
such a good thing, because as you say, you live. If you're as a performer, if you're doing a scene like that, you're really living it. You're really being it, embodying it, and so it's really easy to take it with you. So having that coaching is just a brilliant thing, and it's lovely. It also goes to the whole production safety side of things, that you clearly had thought all of these elements out in a really thorough way. I'm going to go to the audience for questions in a minute, so get them ready. But first of all, before we go there, I want to talk about releasing the film during the pandemic, because the timing was so sad. It was not how you envisioned it at all. But tell us how you made the best of it. What exactly happened? How did it all go down?
I just cried a whole lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of crying.
When we were at TIFF, we went to Toronto. It was the weirdest TIFF I've ever been to. There was nobody. There's 50 people in the room. It was so sad. It was so sad. I just cried a lot.
It was very, like, even the TIFF, like, of those 50 people, there are 50 tickets sold. 16 people showed up for one theater. I think people were scared and bought the tickets and then didn't use them. And it was so weird. You walked into the movie theater and you're the only one there. They're like, "Hello, can we take you to your seat?" Like, it was like just like a private screening. It was so weird. Yeah.
Yes. And Berlin as well. When the film, so we played at TIFF in September, and in October, mid-October or something, we're being invited to. After TIFF, we were invited to a whole bunch of festivals. It often happens that from one festival, a lot of programmers watch and they invite you to others. And so mid-October or something like this, we're invited to another festival I think it was in Italy. It's in November or something like this. So it's very close. And we had already presented it to Berlin, and Berlin is in March. So it's kind of far away. And we have wonderful sales agents, Wasabi Films. And so I called Annick Poirier at Wasabi, and I'm like, what are we going to do? She goes, yeah, let us talk to Berlin and see. Oh, okay, cool. It's good to have good sales agents. And they came back with, yeah, you're in, you're at Berlin, they want you. The only thing is you have to stay quiet until February. Oh my God. Okay, because Berlin is the end all be all, right? Like there's Cannes and there's, for me there's Cannes, like which is really big. But I knew Beans was not for Cannes. It wouldn't have never been played there. So, but Berlin is the ultimate festival for this film. And
what makes Berlin the ultimate festival for this particular film?
It's the way that they program their films. See, the Cannes is a lot more about auteur films. I don't know how to describe. You just have to see the films that win every year to know. Berlin is a lot. They are not so afraid of political issues. They have been for years now programming films from indigenous communities all over the world. So I just knew this was our festival, and then when they selected us, I was like, yay! Okay, now I gotta shut up.
Well, the other thing that Emery is you only get one premiere in North America, in worldwide, in Europe. So we couldn't go to Italy and then necessarily get Berlin, because then we would have already premiered, and then we go down the list in terms of who wants us. And then the other thing, the upside of this was that TIFF only took 50 films, and they usually have around 300. So we got so much more attention than we perhaps would have gotten, than we likely would have gotten. So that was in our favor, that pandemic weirdness. that worked well for us.
Yes. Well, let's go to the room and see if there's any questions or if there's anything online. Carson, if anybody has written in anything. Yes. Yes, Libby. I'm going to just re-ask that question for the online audience. Given where you've been with this film now, are there other Indigenous creators who have come to you and who you're now working with to bring their stories to the forefront?
Yes. Well, it's fairly new, but yes, I've met new creators. For those who wouldn't know, I produce films like Beans, but I also produce films like Turbo Kid and Slacks. I love genre. It's a lot of fun. I love producing very serious, hard-to-do films like Beans, but I also need to have fun, and it's a lot of fun to produce genre. So now I've been approached by a team of women filmmakers who have a story. I won't talk about it right now, but it's a mix of the indigenous story told within the genre. So it's fantastic. It's fantastical. What do you say?
Fantastique?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastical.
Yeah. Fantasy?
Yeah. Fantasy.
Fantasy, yes. Yes. It has a lot of element of magic and a lot of things that are happening and superpowers that are being developed. So it's very genre, but very indigenous at the same time. So I'm mixing the two things that I love. So it's great.
And the two things, the change that has happened is now there are so many more Indigenous voices in the mix now. So rather than writing with someone now, I'm mentoring a lot of people. I'm working with the WIFT, the Women in Film and Television Indigenous Writers Program, and mentoring a whole bunch of writers through that program. Mm-hmm. So it's nice because now the push has been to bring those voices into the forefront.
Yes, and find these stories that are just so powerful. I mean, this story and all, telling a story that's as gritty and a difficult time in our country's history. I mean, it was a shameful time. It was a shameful thing that happened. And and it's just so dirty. But to tell it from the perspective of this angelic girl it was such a contrast that I think it was something really special. And do you find there's more Indigenous voices that are like this now, that have this depth of storytelling ability? As you say, you're mentoring a few. What are you seeing, Meredith?
I'm seeing everything, like broad comedy to drama, and I do want to just segue from that for a second to say Gauendio, shout out. We haven't really even shouted her out. She's in every frame of the movie. She's so amazing. She's brought it every time. She's such an artist. She wrote the song that's at the end of the movie. I don't know that everyone knows that.
No.
She wrote that song that the movie closes with. She's also the most incredible painter. Like, she really is just a creator on every way. And then the other person I want to shout out is Rainbow Dickerson, who played her mother. Because you can imagine that scene that we saw. The whole day happens. The kids always have to wrap early. It's not an easy day to shoot that scene. That's a big day with a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively. And then Rainbow, you look at your watch and it's like, okay, Rainbow, you got 45 minutes. Here we go. And then the camera is next to her. And then she's doing all of that after doing that whole day. I mean, she was I call her the winner of the acting Olympics. Like, and she did it every day because the kids always had to wrap early. She was amazing.
Fantastic. Now, what are they doing now? Tell us a little bit more about what their jobs are.
Can you talk about Gauendio?
What else have they done?
Gauendio is busy shooting a Netflix series right now in Vancouver.
The Last Airbender,
yes,
Avatar?
Thank you.
That's it.
Oh,
thank you.
very nice.
The other one I won't know, though. There's something else. Oh, no, Rutherford Falls. She's also in Rutherford Falls, which is on Peacock and NBC at Helms Comedy.
And prior to this, she had been in a couple of other large productions, yes?
Just Anne with an E.
Anne with an E.
And that was, I think
in the third season of Anne with an E, they introduced an Indigenous character, and so she is the character, yeah.
And so this has really moved her career in a really strong, powerful direction. But she's clearly talented enough to run with it and do really well.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. And what about Rainbow?
I don't know, but she told me, and I don't know. She won an award herself at TIFF.
Yes.
She was part of the. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I'm sorry, Rainbow. But she's in Los Angeles. She was. She came from Los Angeles to do this, and
she does a lot of theater there, and I know that she is in selection for something at CBS because I had to help her out with that. But I don't know where that's
don't know
going.
if that is booked yet. Booked solid. Wonderful. So in this whole process, what is the most memorable part for you? What did you feel has given you the most rewards, personal rewards?
The whole thing, but there was one day we were in prep, and it was such a marathon to go into prep, and the last answer came in from Telefilm. The yes was June 10. We wanted to shoot that summer. We wanted to shoot during the summer time because the children are in school, and we didn't want to get into tutoring, and that was clearly not going to happen. So we were going to be shooting throughout September into October. That meant tutoring. Tutoring means that because we have collective agreements, thank God, because they do protect the actors, especially the young ones. So, for example, Viola has a maximum 8-hour day. 2 hours have to go to tutoring, so she's not on set. So we have to figure out the scenes with her 6 hours a day. It is a massive, massive puzzle. So there was a whole lot of things to do, and then we were running after trying to get the bridge. We weren't getting it, so we were trying to figure out a long stretch of road where we could do VFX and rebuild the bridge in VFX and post. It was massive undertakings. And so anyway, so we're moving along, and so little by little in prep, that's what happens, is that you find the partners, you find somebody has a solution, you hire someone else, and things are going. And then at some point I went, okay, now I got to think ahead because my distributors are asking me to think of a promotion day. Like, okay, I didn't want to think about that, and I read this, I went through the entire schedule. I was like, we can't invite them at Rocks at Whiskey Trench. no way. Tracey's going to be crying all day. She won't be able to do interviews. We can't do this. We can't do that. I don't want them here. There's 200 extras. There's like at least 10 days with more than 200 extras on set. So I was like, oh my God, when are we going to have the press day? And then I thought that beautiful, beautiful scene where all the mothers walk out in between the two barricades. The tension is rising. And so we're on the Mohawk side, and Lily, the mom, is arriving with beans, and Ruby, they're playing little games. They're bringing food to the people on the barricade, but their tension is rising. They're yelling, swear words at each other. They're being very violent, and so the mothers walk out into the middle of the two barricades, some facing this way, some facing this way. And then our wonderful actress, Gelinas, says, if you want respect, you have to behave respectfully. And this was the power of women. And you have to know that in Mohawk community, it is a matriarchal community. So when women speak, men listen. So it was just an amazing, amazing, powerful scene. And I really wanted the media to see that. So that's when we did our,
so that's your
our
press day.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that whole story up because as a producer, your job is problem solving, isn't it?
Yes.
And
problem solving on all levels. Is it a budget problem? Is it a legal problem? Is it an ego problem? Is it technical,
scheduling
logistical
problem?
Scheduling, yes.
Building, not getting the bridge and having to think of something else. How
Well,
did
we
you
did
end
get
up
the
doing
bridge.
it? You did
Yeah,
end
the
up getting
bridge story. You should tell the bridge story.
So about 6 days before, we had hired, we were working with Sasha Deer, no family relation. She was our logistical person and our community liaison. So she would help us find all sorts of things and navigate and be respectful working in Ganawage because we put our production office in Ganawage. And most of our filming was there. She has a brother-in-law who works for the Mercier Bridge Mohawk Consortium. And so after the Oka Crisis, the Mohawk community negotiated with the Quebec government because they said the bridge is on their territory, and they were right. And so they said, okay, we're going to share the renovations of the bridge. We do this, you do that, So they share it. So they contacted us about 6 days before we started shooting and said, we're going to be there August 24, 25. That day is marked in my head. August 24, 25, Saturday, Sunday, we're there. We're doing renovations on this part of the bridge, and I think you could use this part. And we all went, oh my God, we got the bridge. Tracey.
We never thought we'd get the bridge. It was never even an option. We didn't even think it was ever going to happen.
I've been working on it for a year and a half, literally, because I knew we wanted the bridge. The bridge was central to our story. And it was a national security thing. Like, you cannot close a bridge to film. It is impossible. It is dangerous to the entire population. So there is no way. You can close it. You can use one lane, but then you have to leave all the other lanes for traffic to go through, either an ambulance or a fire truck or whatever. So it's a security thing. So we could never do it. And so because of the renovations, they were closing one half of the bridge completely and rerouting all traffic to the other half. And so anyway, so Tracey just went, and she just fell on the floor. I don't think you were in the production office
I
that
wasn't
day.
there that day.
She just fell on the floor, like star shape, and just went, oh my God. Anyway, and my brain exploded too. Oh my God. What are we doing? Logistically, like, okay, guys, we're not sleeping for the next 4 days until, and we were supposed to start shooting 2 days after that. So we had already had a day one in mind that we weren't ready for. Well, we didn't feel ready for. Now we have to switch days from further down the schedule onto our day 1 and 2 with 200 extras, 25 period cars, barricades, because all the barricades have to be brought in. It's a period film. It's 1990. Yeah. So all the costumes, everything has to be ready. And we called everybody and went like, guys, nobody's sleeping for the next 4 or 5 days. This is what we're doing. Because we have the bridge. We need the bridge.
Truly amazing.
And all of that on the first day of shooting. You didn't know anyone's name yet. you know, and you're like, you over there, I need a, like, it was.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing. Well, we're running out of time. We're right at the end of our time. And I did want to point out that all of the films that we bring here to the Forest City Film Festival have a connection to the region. And Meredith is the connection to the region because, of course, this film wasn't shot anywhere in southwestern Ontario. But Meredith, as the writer, went,
Well, I lived here from age 2 to 5, and that's when I knew Megan Fowler, who is the board member who was the liaison that helped us come.
Yes.
And then I went to Huron College as well.
Western.
So I love London. We're really happy to be here. Thank you, Dorothy, for inviting us.
Yes.
And thank you to the Ontario Screen Creators Conference for having us. This is really fun to talk about this movie. We love it, obviously. So thank you.
Yes, it's and I love it too, and I'm so glad that you guys made the time to come here in person. This has been a delightful time with you. So thank you very much on behalf of the Ontario Screen Creators Conference, Film London. We are very grateful to you being here. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.